Hi everyone, welcome to Excel Clinic. In this episode, we will talk about how I built an exchange rate table. It was something that the MNCs use, but in today's globalized world, even small businesses deal in foreign currencies. So, it is kind of relevant to every organization nowadays. I'm not going to just create a table and ask you to go copy and paste the rates from the net. We will be building an exchange rate table that is more or less fully automated. Before I show you the magic, subscribe to my channel and turn on the notification so that you will not miss the next episode. I'm going to use xe.com as the exchange rate source. It is a common source of exchange rates. Depending on how the website is designed, this approach may not work for other websites. We will be using Power Query to extract the exchange rate for the website and a macro to store the rate extracted into a database for future use. Let's go to xe.com. Go to Tools, then Historical Currency Rates. Select your functional currency and pick a date that is earlier than today. Click Confirm and observe how the URL changes. Copy the URL before the hex sign. Go to Excel, Data, from Web. Ctrl V to paste the URL we copied earlier and click OK. It may take a while to load. OK, now select Table 0. If you are applying this method to other exchange rate websites, it might not be Table 0. You just have to look for the table where it stores the rates. If you are using xe.com but you don't see Table 0, you have likely selected today's date earlier on. Change the selections and copy the URL again. Click Load Data. It is as simple as that. You got the exchange rates now in Excel. But this is not reusable, because the rates here are for 30th June, and it will remain as 30th June 2022 even after 10 years. So we need to make it reusable. Remember in the URL we copied earlier, there is a date value in the URL address. Now, what we have to do is to make the date value variable. There is a couple of ways to do this. You could, for example, hardcode a logic in Power Query so that it will always retrieve the rates for yesterday. But I reckon that not many Excel users are familiar with Power Query. So I will give the user some flexibility to change the date in the spreadsheet itself. To do that, you need to have a cell for the user to enter the date and bring that value into Power Query. Insert two rows above the table. Enter date and the value. We need to bring the date here into Power Query. For some reasons, it requires the cell to have a name. Let's give it a name, date for example. Go to Data and this time from Table, Range. The date in the URL earlier is in YYYMMDD format. As you can see here, the date is in the British date format. So we are going to convert it. You can Google convert date to text and you will get a few usable alternatives. But I think this method is easier for beginners. Convert column 1 to date. Add column, custom column, enter the formula here. Equal date dot to text, column 1, format YYYY, MMDD. MM is in the uppercase. We have another column which is the date value converted to text in YMD format. This is a Power Query table. To use the value in the URL, we need to select the cell that we want, right click and drill down. It is a value instead of a table now. Go to Table 0. You can rename it if you like. Go to the first tab. You can see the URL in the formula bar. Like in Excel, remove the date and concatenate it with the date value we brought in from the spreadsheets earlier. Go to Home, press Close and Load To. Only create connection. Rename the sheets to Retrieve to make it more intuitive. Then create another sheet called Historical. The next step is to store these rates into a table so that you can refer to the historical data in the future. Design the table. Effective date and the few currencies that we need. You can manually copy and paste this rate from Retrieve, but I'm not going to do that. Insert 4 rows above the table. What I'm going to do is to use the first sections of this worksheet to retrieve the rates from the retrieve sheet, and then use macro to insert them into the historical data table. Let's do the first part. Enter the effective date. Then you can use XLOOKUP to retrieve the rates. Equal XLOOKUP. The first argument is B2. The second argument is the currency column. The third argument can either be units per SGD or SGD per unit. Copy and paste across. To make things even more automated, I would change the date in the retrieve sheet to a formula and refer to the effective date in the historical sheet, -1. Why -1? Logically, the rates of today can only be effective tomorrow because the rates of today are only available or fixed when the market closes. The default setting for Power Query enables background refresh. It is a very useful feature because it doesn't freeze Excel when you refresh the query. It allows you to work on other things in Excel while the queries continue to run in the background. It could, however, be counterproductive. The query can take a while to refresh, and if you are not aware that it is being refreshed, you might rely on the data that is out of date. So, I'm going to turn this off because I want to record a macro later, and I do not want Excel to move to the next step before the refresh is complete. Now, the macro. For beginners, I always recommend starting with the recording function. If you don't have the developer tab, right-click on the ribbon, customize the ribbon, then tick on the checkbox for developer. Before we start the recording, we need to plan the steps. What we need Excel to do is first, refresh the data, insert a row before row 6 in the historical data table, copy row 3 and paste values into the new row created. You might wonder why insert a row when row 6 is empty. It is empty for the first time, but it will not be when you do this the second time. Turn on the recorder and give it a name.
Recording in progress.
When we finish the recording, click on the stop button here. You can press alternate F11 and navigate to the module to view the codes recorded. This is what you can expect. If you have more lines than this, you can remove the extra lines. You can further summarize the codes here to make it more efficient. But since it is our first time recording macro, I will just leave it like this. We need a trigger. Insert a text box, format it nicely, and right-click on it, assign macro. Select the macro you recorded earlier. Let's try it. It works. When you save this workbook, remember it contains a macro. You should save it in XLSM or XLSB format. That's all for this episode. Any idea what I should do next? Comment below and let me know. Like and share this video with your fellow Excel users. See ya!